Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the MLB games scheduled for Saturday, July 1st, 2023. Now, if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, including my $19 rundown best bet, you can find those at the premium picks tab at pickdawgz.com. Alrighty, let's get into it. Here are the games for Saturday in Major League Baseball. First up, we go to the Cincinnati Reds San Diego Padres game at Great American Ballpark. We should see Brandon Williamson going for Cincinnati. No official starter for the Padres right now, but I am reading Michael Wacha could be the option on the mound. Now, Brandon Williamson had a decent start to his Major League career, but has regressed ever since. His last outing, only 2 innings of work, giving up 3 earned runs. That was that rain delay game against the Baltimore Orioles. And Williamson, a left-handed pitcher facing the San Diego Padres. The Padres have been very frustrating as of late for most batters, but they have been very good against left-handed pitchers. When you look at the numbers, in the last 30 days, San Diego is number 2 in baseball in team OPS. They are number 5 in baseball in isolated power. Pretty low strikeout rate and a high walk rate to go with it, so I like their chances against the lefty here. Michael Wacha was pitching really well before the injury, but I am concerned that this is going to be his first start back. I do think at Great American Ballpark against the Reds team, it's crushing right-handed pitchers in the last 30 days. Might not be the best spot or matchup for Wacha, so I'm going to take the over here in Reds-Padres. Next up, we see the New York Yankees taking on the St. Louis Cardinals. Garrett Cole and Jack Flaherty are your starters. I got to take the Yankees in this game. Jack Flaherty just has not been good enough at Busch Stadium this season. He's also just not in really good form going into the start to begin with. His last 2 outings against the Giants and Nationals, giving up 20 base hits and 12 earned runs combined. It is interesting to see this game as a pick'em. Usually, with Garrett Cole on the mound against a starter that's struggling, you'll see the Yankees as big favorites. Just goes to show you how bad this Yankees offense has been in the last month or so without Aaron Judge. But Garrett Cole, it's tough to go against him at this kind of price. We're not going to get prices like this with Cole in most games the rest of the season. He's been the stopper for the Yankees. He's one of the big reasons why this team has a winning record this year, as even when he's not his best, like we saw in his last game against the Rangers, where he gave up those 3 runs in 4 2/3 innings, he still puts the Yankees in a competitive position to win the ball game. The Yankees are 3-2 on the money line in his last 5 starts. And I think he pitches well enough here for the Yankees to grab a W. Not my favorite game on the board. That line is pretty interesting, but I'm going to lean towards the Yankees on the money line. Next up, we see the Boston Red Sox taking on the Toronto Blue Jays. Cutter Crawford and Yusei Kikuchi are your projected starters. I'm going to isolate this game to the Toronto Blue Jays team total in the first 5 innings. I like the team total over 2.5 or 3 runs for Toronto in that first 5. Cutter Crawford's had mixed results as a starting pitcher this year. He's been really solid out of the bullpen for the Red Sox, but more so some inconsistencies in his game when he's a starter. We saw in his last game against the Chicago White Sox, 6 innings of work, 4 earned runs, and 2 home runs in a 4-1 Red Sox loss. Not really what you want to see. That was against one of the weaker teams in baseball against righties. Now you're facing the Toronto Blue Jays, who in the last 30 days are top 15 in team OPS, isolated power, and WRC plus against those right-handed pitchers. So I do like the matchup offensively for Toronto early in this game. So give me the team total over in the first 5 for Toronto. Next up, we see the Houston Astros taking on the Texas Rangers. Hunter Brown and Nathan Eovaldi are your starters. This could be a close game, I think, an entertaining one as well between these 2 ALS rivals, but I like the Astros on the road in this one. I think we're getting a really good price with Hunter Brown, who's coming off a bounce-back outing, 6 innings, 1 run, 7 strikeouts against the Los Angeles Dodgers in a 6-5 Astros win. Nathan Eovaldi's been great this year as well, but not as great at home this year with a steeper ERA at 3.46. The Astros, even without Yordan Alvarez, have really made a lot of improvements offensively in the last 30 days against right-handed pitchers. I like their chances here. I think Brown gives the Astros 5-6 good innings. I think the bats back them up, and it should be, if it's a close game late, even, both of these bullpens have been so inconsistent lately, but I'd give the edge to the Astros. Give me the Houston Astros on the money line. Next up, we see the Minnesota Twins taking on the Baltimore Orioles. Bailey Ober and Kyle Bradish are your starters. The last time Ober pitched, I mentioned that. I like the fact that he doesn't really walk a lot of guys. He throws a lot of strikes, but sometimes he throws too many strikes and can leave pitches down the heart of the zone. And when you look at his game logs as of late, they don't look bad. I mean, quality start after quality start for Bailey Ober, but you can tell he's giving up a lot of sharp contact, and we saw the home runs against the Brewers and Red Sox, 4 home runs in those 2 starts. When he misses, it's usually right down the middle of the plate. And for me, facing the Baltimore Orioles in Camden Yards is not where you want to be doing that. A very, very competitive lineup. A team doesn't really strike out much. They get on base. And Kyle Bradish on the other side has been really sharp as of late. A sub-4 ERA now on this season. His last 2 outings, 12 innings, 4 earned runs against the Rays and the Mariners. 2 solid lineups. 15 strikeouts in those games and 2 Orioles wins. And one of those games was on the road. One of those games was at Camden Yards. He's been even better at Camden Yards this year, a 3.03 ERA at home in 35 2/3 innings. I like the Orioles in this game. Give me the Orioles on the money line. Next up, we see the Washington Nationals taking on the Philadelphia Phillies. We're going to see Mackenzie Gore and Zach Wheeler on the mound in this one. Now, this is a revenge game for Zach Wheeler, who struggled against these Nationals back on June 2nd. Gave up 7 earned runs in 3 2/3 innings. But since that start, the Phillies are 4-0 on the money line in Wheeler's last 4 outings. I think he bounces back here and gets to Washington. We know Wheeler's been a lot better at home in the last couple of years and this season than he has been on the road, where he's going to be right now above 4. So I think Wheeler pitches well in this game. I also think the Phillies bats are going to back him up, both against Mackenzie Gore and not a great Washington Nationals bullpen. Mackenzie Gore is a strong starting pitching option for Washington. I like the fact that he earns a lot of strikeouts, 104 Ks in 85 2/3 innings. But the Phillies have crushed lefties as of late. They're top 3 in baseball in OPS and top 10 in baseball in isolated power against lefties in the last month. We know Gore, when he has struggled against certain teams, it's usually the teams that do have some of the best numbers in baseball against lefties. Teams like the Cardinals back on June 20th, like the Braves back on June 10th. So I do think the Phillies will be able to get to him. And even if it's only for a couple of runs, like I said, I think they'll be able to add a few on this Washington Nationals bullpen. So give me the Philadelphia Phillies here on the run line at Citizens Bank Park. Next up, we see the Milwaukee Brewers taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates. Corbin Burnes and Johan Oviedo are your starters. Corbin Burnes is not in great form going into this start, but Johan Oviedo is. His last 13 innings of work, only 3 earned runs allowed, but the only problem is both of those were Pirates losses because they got shut out in both games, 4-0 and 2-0. And in fact, Johan Oviedo and the Pirates are 0-4 on the money line in his last 4 starts. So, the problem has been the offense for the Pirates with Oviedo on the mound. And then overall in the last 30 days, Pittsburgh doesn't have great numbers against right-handed pitchers. So, I don't love their matchup here. But the Brewers offensively have also not been great against righties in the last month. They're 30th in baseball, dead last in team OPS. They're 27th in isolated power. And they have a pretty steep strikeout rate of 27.4%. For me, I'm going to take the under in this game. I don't trust either of these offenses in this one. Even though Corbin Burnes is not in the best of form, and both of these bullpens can be so-so, I still think we'd see a low-scoring game. So give me the under and Brewers-Pirates. Next up, we see the Chicago White Sox taking on the Oakland Athletics. We're going to see Dylan Cease and James Kaprielian on the mound. Dylan Cease is in great form going into the start. His last 5 games, he's gone at least 5 innings. He's given up 2 earned runs or fewer, and he's earning a lot of strikeouts with a lot better control as well. And only 3 home runs allowed in his last 5 starts combined. You will take that all day long from a power pitcher like Dylan Cease, who, usually in his past has had some issues giving up the long ball. But James Kaprielian's also in good form going into the start. You look at that ERA on paper, 6.34, looks pretty lopsided, but I will say he's been a lot better starting pitcher than that ERA may suggest in the last 30 days or so. And he's faced some tough lineups along the way. The Braves, the Rays, the Phillies, the Blue Jays, and 4 earned runs or fewer in all 4 of those ball games. So I think Kaprielian will pitch pretty well in this game. The problem is I don't think his offense backs him up at all. I think this is going to be a low-scoring game, especially at a pitcher-friendly ballpark. I see a 3-1, 4-1, maybe 5-1 final score in favor of the White Sox. So I like the White Sox on the run line, and I like the under in this one. Next up, we see the Miami Marlins taking on the Atlanta Braves. Eury Perez and Charlie Morton are your starters. This is a game I'm staying away from and watching as a fan. I'm excited to see Eury Perez in this game against a division rival in Atlanta, but I don't necessarily love the spot here. There's a reason why the Marlins were even thinking about bringing Perez down to the minor leagues, even though he was pitching well. But because Edward Cabrera got injured, they couldn't really do that. There's a reason, because the workload for a young rookie starting pitcher is always a concern, especially when it's a guy like Perez who earns a lot of strikeouts and has really good power pitches. He's got 54 strikeouts in 47 innings. The workload is a little bit of a concern. He's been pitching every 5 days. He's been going 6+ innings. For a rookie pitcher, you're not used to that quite yet at the major league level, and you're facing the toughest lineup in baseball against right-handed pitchers in Atlanta. The number 1 OPS, the number 1 isolated power, a low strikeout rate. This is the toughest matchup for Eury Perez this season, that's for sure. You look at his last 5 games, a lot of weak lineups. The A's, the White Sox, the Mariners haven't been great. The Pirates, the Blue Jays were a tough one, but he pitched well in that game, give him credit. But I don't know if I love his chances in this one. Charlie Morton, I don't know what we're going to see from Charlie Morton. Last year, he struggled mightily on the road and was great at Truist Park. This season, it's been the opposite. He's got a 4.74 ERA at Truist Park this year. And the Marlins, offensively, we saw them against the Red Sox. The Marlins are playing great baseball overall, but their offense has kind of been all over the place. Luis Ariz in a little bit of a slump, and we saw them score 10 runs and then 6 runs, and then they almost got no hit by Brian Bayo and the Red Sox in the final game of that series. So for me, I'm staying away from this one, but if I had to lean, I would take the 1.5 runs here with Miami because I do think it's going to be a pretty close game. And by the way, both of these bullpens have been sensational in the last 30 days. They're number 1 and number 2 in Sierra in the last month. So for me, this is going to be a great game to watch as a fan, but I'm staying away from it. Next up, we see the Chicago Cubs taking on the Cleveland Guardians. Tanner Bybee and Marcus Stroman are your starters. Tanner Bybee, 3.79 ERA overall this season, but not great on the road. It's where we've really seen him struggle. 5.68 ERA and 25 1/3 innings away from Progressive Field. Marcus Stroman's been so good this year for Chicago, and their bullpen's also been really solid in the last 30 days, so I got to go with the Cubs in this game. Even though their offense has not been great in the last month or so, I think they'll be able to get to Tanner Bybee. I think Stroman will pitch well at Wrigley Field. I think the Cubs grab the victory. So give me the Chicago Cubs on the money line at Wrigley Field. Next up, we see the Los Angeles Dodgers taking on the Kansas City Royals. Julio Urias and Daniel Lynch are your starters. I like the over in this game. The Dodgers facing a lefty here in Daniel Lynch. Lynch has not pitched well at Kauffman Stadium this season. He's been a lot sharper away from home, but at home a 6.23 ERA and 17 1/3 innings of work. The Dodgers have some of the best numbers in baseball against lefties this year, so I do expect them to do most of the damage for us in getting over this total. But I also think the Royals will be able to chip in a few runs. Julio Urias has struggled on the road this year. His first start back from an injury. I don't expect him to go too deep in this ball game. So the Dodgers have to rely on their so-so bullpen. And Urias, a lefty. The Royals haven't been great against lefties in the last 30 days. We saw at the beginning of the season solid numbers from Kansas City, and I do think they'll be able to chip in a few runs for us. So give me the over here in Los Angeles, Kansas City, with a lean to the Dodgers on the run line. Next up, it's Tampa Bay Rays taking on the Seattle Mariners. We're going to see Tyler Glasnow and George Kirby on the mound in this one. Now, this should be a low-scoring game. I don't think there's a lot of value on the under because when you got two really good starting pitchers on the mound at a very pitcher-friendly ballpark like T-Mobile Park, you're going to naturally see a low total. And we see a total opening up at 6.5 runs in this game. So there's not a lot of wiggle room in the first 5 or the full game. I'd rather look at the Mariners here at a pretty solid price, as although I think, Tyler Glasnow is a really good starting pitching option, I think especially against the Mariners who strike out quite a bit, Glasnow should pitch well. I don't love the fact that, because he's a strikeout pitcher that has some control issues, the pitch counts usually go up on him pretty early in games. With his injury history, the Rays have not really wanted him to go too deep into ball games. He has not gone more than 6 innings once this year, and usually it's around 4 1/3 to 5 innings of work for Glasnow. So even though this Rays bullpen's made a lot of improvements in the last 30 days, I'd much rather have this Rays bullpen go in the game in the 7th, 8th, and 9th rather than the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th, or maybe even the 5th, 6th, 7th through the 9th. So I do think the Mariners have the advantage there. George Kirby, the way that he pitches, a lot more efficient on the mound. We see him go 6 1/3, 7, 8 innings in 3 of his last 5 starts. So I do think we're going to see a low-scoring game, a competitive game, but I like the Mariners' chances in the end. Give me Seattle on the money line. Next up, we go to Coors Field as the Tigers take on the Rockies. Unfortunately, we're going to have to take a pass on this one, a Ruffalo as we call it here at Pick Dawgz, because we don't have any starting pitching information right now for this game. Neither team has an announced official starter or a probable starter, and it's tough to talk about a game when you don't know who's pitching. So for me, it's a Coors Field game. Obviously, the total is going to be pretty steep if it's going to be a bullpen game for both of these teams. Maybe take a look at the over, but right now, just a pass, just a Ruffalo for me. Next up, the final game for Saturday's card in Major League Baseball. It's the Arizona Diamondbacks taking on the Los Angeles Angels. Ryan Nelson and Tyler Anderson are your starters. At the beginning of the season, the Arizona Diamondbacks didn't have the best numbers against left-handed pitchers, but as of late, they've been solid. When you look in the last 30 days, top 15 in both team OPS and isolated power against lefties, and the second lowest strikeout rate at 17.3%. So I like their matchup against Tyler Anderson here, who's got a 5.88 ERA at Angels Stadium, and although he's coming off really good outings against the Rockies and Royals, those are two of the worst teams in baseball against lefties this season. I know that Rocky start was at Coors Field. Anderson's had a lot of experience at Coors Field. He used to be a Rockies pitcher, so I don't really put too much into that game. I think the Diamondbacks will be able to get to him. I like the fact that Ryan Nelson's pitched a lot better on the road than he has at Chase Field this season. His ERA at Chase Field's above 7 on the year, but a 3.07 ERA away from home, 44 innings of work. His strikeout numbers are better, much lower opponent's batting average, 228 compared to 341 at home. Give me the Arizona Diamondbacks on the money line on the road to end the night. And that's it. Those are the games for Saturday in baseball. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. And don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.